my goodness, you guys, this book, I don't know where to start from. Like, wow, 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 wow. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Rachel here. As always, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a thing. You can also like this video so that it is fair to other viewers as well. Today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on this beautifully heartbreaking, beautiful book called The Mountains Sing by Nguyen Phan. I hope I'm pronouncing that well. This book is it is stirring, it is beautiful, it is heartbreaking. Without wasting too much time, let us get into this book. This book is a historical fiction book and it's set against the backdrop of the Vietnam War, and it's an enveloping multi-generational tale of the Tran family, perfect for fans of pachinko or Yagiasi's Homegoing. If you've read Homegoing or you've read Pachinko, then this one is something that you like. I did a review on Homegoing, Yagiasi's Homegoing. I think, was it this year or last year? I can't remember. Check it out on my channel. Queimai Nguyen Phan was born in Vietnam in 1973 and grew up witnessing the war's devastation of her country. She worked as a street seller and rice farmer before winning a scholarship to attend university in Australia. She is the author of eight books of poetry, short fiction, and non-fiction in Vietnamese. Her writing has been translated and published in more than 10 countries and has received many honors, including the Hanoi Writers Association Poetry of the Year 2010 award. She has an MA in creative writing and is currently a PhD candidate at Lancaster University. She currently divides her time between Indonesia and Vietnam. This book was gifted to me, right, by someone who is like really cool, and it's been sitting on my shelf for a couple of months. Then a book club, the Indulgent Bibliophile Book Club, they selected it as their book of the month. I think was it April or when? I can't remember. But I saw it and I'm like, yeah, this is a good opportunity to read this book. And I saw that they were going to have an author book chat with the author, maybe to like ask her questions. And literally as I'm recording this, I had just, participated in their book club meet where the author was asked questions, and it was just so amazing seeing all the things that she had to say in her experience writing this book. Like, it's an emotional one, honestly. It's really deep. Let me just read out the synopsis of this book. Hanoi, which is a place, 1972. Huang and her grandmother, Tran Du Lan, cling to one another in their impoverished shelter as American bombs fall around them. Her father and mother have already left to fight in a war that is tearing not just her country but her family apart. For Tran Du Lan, forced to flee the family farm with her 6 children decades earlier as the communist government rose to power in the north, this experience is horribly familiar. Seen through the eyes of these two unforgettable women, The Mountains Sing captures their defiance and determination, hope and unexpected joy. Vivid, gripping, and steeped in the language and traditions of Vietnam, celebrated Vietnamese poet Nguyen's richly lyrical debut weaves between the lives of grandmother and granddaughter to paint a unique picture of the country's turbulent 20th century history. This is the story of a people pushed to breaking point and a family who refused to give in. I finished reading this book today, so my emotions are still very raw. Like, I don't even know where to start from. Like, this is a beautiful book. If you've read A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khalid Hosseini or Yagiasi's Homegoing, it sort of gives you that vibe. Because it's historical fiction, so these are real things that have happened in the history of a people, but it's told through the eyes of those people, and you get to see the impact of some of these things that we hear about in the news, and it's only statistics that we're aware of, but just humanizing those statistics and giving personal experiences to those people who have suffered and still continue to suffer from the impact of these things. At the beginning of the book, you sort of see a family tree of the grandma Du Lan and her granddaughter Huang, who are the two major characters. And the book is written in the first person narrative, explaining showing the experiences of these characters. And so the book goes back between different time frames. It covers the 1950s, which I'm coming to, which is the setting of the book. But the plot is really engaging, and it follows the lives of these two women, what they had to go through during the Vietnamese War, during World War II, the Great Hunger, land reform. These are things that are quite unique to the Vietnamese people, and these are things that history does not really write much about. And when history writes, it leans towards the side of the oppressor and paints them as though, things are rosy, and these are not really the effects of what has happened. But just, reading this book, wow, I mean, the plot was very engaging. As in, I literally feel like, and listening to the author speak in this book chat just brought the whole book to life all the more, because, she was sharing her own personal experiences and experiences of her friends and families and people that she knew and she met. She had to interview quite a number of elderly people to get some of this information, and it was so vital and important for her to actually document, what Vietnamese people have gone through and are still going through even till today. And I know that after I read this book, I did quite a lot of research, and I saw some things about Agent Orange, and about the land reform, the Great Hunger, and wow, I mean, wow. The plot is engaging, and I thought that she did a fantastic job in bringing these characters to life. It was a page turner. You wanted to know what happened more as time went on. I know that the first couple of pages I was a little bit overwhelmed and I was a little bit confused, because of course I was still trying to figure out who is who and what is happening where. But this is, as in, this book, I mean, like every other book that you read, as you progress, you sort of get to know what is going on, especially if you're not Vietnamese or you're not really conversant with Vietnamese culture or traditions. But I learned so much even from the plot. The setting of this book was between so you saw the life of Dulan, that's the grandma, from the 1900s, early 20th century, down on how she, sort of dealt with the Great Hunger, her experience, and it was a lot. It was really, really a lot. And this is going to be like a spoiler-free book review, but it's just something that you sort of get the vibe of what this book is about. And I thought that it's so important that Vietnamese people have that voice to be able to tell the story of the impact of the war on civilians, on women and children. And I love the fact that there were women that were at the forefront of this book, which dispensed the whole thing women were just sitting at home doing nothing. These women did whatever they did to keep their families alive. They had to risk their lives. They had to, do so many things. And I just really love the way the plot was arranged. So this book was set in the 1950s, like I said, 1900s, 30 to 40 something, and then 60 something to 70 something, capturing the timelines of these two different women. And the book was written in a way that it went back and forth between each timeline, so that at the end of the day there was this resolution and culmination into the end. And it was a massive explosive end, which just showed the impact of things that could have happened generations before coming to show their impact in later generations. It was beautiful, and it was a lot. I love the writing style of this book because it was steeped in Vietnamese tradition, culture, unapologetically Vietnamese. And if you're not, you're opened into a world of rituals, traditions, culture, religion, belief, strong sense of family, strong sense of community, strong sense of motherhood, of belief systems that are very akin to the Vietnamese people. And it gave me a sense of understanding what these people are about and not just seeing them from afar, and that was very interesting to me. I liked the fact that there was the constant use of Vietnamese proverbs to explain certain things, used by the characters to sort of explain some of these conditions that they were going through. Honestly, the book left me it's a really emotional book, and it can take you on an emotional roller coaster. That's just the truth. I thought that the characters were well developed. I feel like, they brought to life this book. at the beginning there's a family tree which sort of shows you the different lines and the siblings and all of that. And I know that for characters like Min and Grandma and Huang and Sang, there was strong like in-depth into the reasons why they did what they did and who they later became and the impact of the war and some of these things on their life decisions and how they eventually turned out in life. I know that I would have loved to explore more of the Auntie Min's character. It was a lovely combination of all these characters that were well represented. I love the fact that it explored deep and profound themes like family, community, war. The predominant theme was war and the impact and effect of war on civilians, on soldiers, on generations of Vietnamese people and what they've had to go through. And you know, from my research, I just got all the more pained, I got all the more angry. Like, if you want, you can go and Google more on Agent Orange Vietnam and see some of the videos, see how children are deformed, because from 1962 to 1971, for 9 years, the Americans literally sprayed 20 million, was it 20 million tons or 20 million gallons, thank you, of Agent Orange, which is a dangerous herbicide that is used to kill plants, just so that they could see troops from above, so that they couldn't hide in the dense forest. But now the problem is that this Agent Orange was sipped into the soil, sipped into their crops, into the water bodies, eaten by fish and seafood. And so when people eat these things and when people are exposed to it for a long period of time, then there is a very bad effect on the body. You could have lung disease, liver disease, cancer. A lot of people died. Generations are still suffering for it. Like, children who are still born, who are born now in the 21st century, are still very heavily deformed, either because their parents or their grandparents were exposed to Agent Orange or had eaten something that was exposed to Agent Orange. And it's just so amazing how people can, and that's something that the author said, how people can do certain things during a time of war and you just move on, and other people have to suffer for it. So I like the fact that this book really humanized the experiences of some of the civilians and what they had to go through during these notable times, like the war, the Great Hunger, the land reform, and some other things that these people had to go through. For me, it was such a huge learning experience because I was exposed to the Vietnamese culture, I was exposed to the proverbs, to the beautiful traditions. Yeah, I feel like everybody needs to read this, and everybody needs to, like, you know, especially if you're into historical fiction, if you're into knowing more about a people. And that's why I like books like this, because they humanize experiences and they bring to life what the rest of the world feels are just statistics. So you hear a war, oh, a war happened and 2 million soldiers died. You don't hear about the civilians. And if you hear about the civilians, you say 1.5 civilians died. But what about the people who were impacted, who did not die, but who have to live with the consequences, who have to live with the trauma, who have to live with the psychological effects? You could see some of the characters in this book really battling some psychological effects of the war. You could see the physical effects, you could see death, you could see communities being torn apart, you could see families being torn apart by ideologies or by things that they had been brainwashed to believe by external factors and external players, because those people had their own selfish interest. And there was just an interplay of so many factors, and it's literally just so amazing how just one family, this is just one family and a generational, you know, account of just one family's experience. And now think about 5 families or 50 million families or 200 million families, or how many millions of families who have had this type of impact that they have felt either from war or from adverse things going on in their community. I really love this book and I recommend it. I give it a strong, for me this is a 5/5 book. This is a 5/5 book. Like, this is not even I'm not even going to try to remove any 0.1 for anything. This is a strong 5/5 book, and I love the fact, I commend the author for putting this down. I can imagine what an emotional roller coaster this must have been, and how this might have just been a lot for her to put down. But hey, it's here, and I'm sure that the Vietnamese people are so excited that something like this is here, where their voices are ably represented, and the rest of the world who at least understands English can read this book and know what has happened to them, and know what still continues to happen to generations, like these are children who were not even part of the war. Some of the children don't even know anything about the war yet. They're 3 years old, they're 4 in 2000 and when, and they're still being deformed, they're still going through a lot, you know, and nobody has really taken responsibility. Everybody has denied any responsibility, but they're funding, you know, in some of the research I saw, like the American government will send aid or will send money, but will deny responsibility. And you can just imagine the pain that generations have had to go through. People committed suicide, people went through a lot, people lost their lands, people lost their ancestral homes, and to see how some people are still coping with the resultant effects of what have happened in the past. So thank you so much, QueMai, for putting this down, for writing this. She said in the book chat that it took her 7 years to write this book. So thank you, 7 years well spent, and I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you've read, if it is something that you will want to read, you know, or if you've read something like this, please put in the comments some amazing recommendations like this historical fiction so that I can know. Thank you guys so much for watching this book review, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.